Hello everyone, this is Senrex from the Order 66 Hellions, and I will be doing a part 2 on my GAC strategy guide addressing questions. Now I got 4 questions on my last video that I'm going to be addressing in this order. First, do you just load up the front zones, and what do you do for the back? Second, how do you handle ships? Third, is one side, top or bottom, more important? And then fourth, how do you feel about the new Thrawn design? How important is the back? It depends on what kind of player you are. Now, there's two kinds of players. There's players who are punching up and players who are punching down. If you're punching down, it's not going to be very important. But if you're punching up, it certainly is important. So I like to do a few things. First, for me, if they're likely going to be able to clear your front zone with some combination of the roster that they use, I do one of two things. Now, I like to put my Separatists, my Mon Mothma, and my First Order all on the back wall. And these three teams are great for the opponent to Wampa. However, in most circumstances, I find that they've already expended their Wampa to clear my front wall, which leaves them in a situation where they have three teams that are easily Wampable, but without Wampa are kind of difficult, and they don't have their Wampa. And certainly, if you look at your opponent's roster and they don't have the Wampa Omicron for some unknown reason, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Thirdly, with the deletion of the Omicron that gives Wampa bonus protection every time he applies a damage over time effect being deleted just today, these three teams are going to get a lot better in GAC, as Wampa will not be able to walk over them as easily as he once could. And in some of these cases, if your opponent has a poorly modded or weak Wampa, they will be unable to clear these teams and will get you a nice defensive hold. Second, a Galactic Legend you can never go wrong with in the back wall. Particularly if you set a really tough front defense, you throw a Galactic Legend back there, your opponent's going to be hopeless. They're going to be stuck clearing one zone. Good Galactic Legends for a back wall, I would say a Jedi Master Luke with a Basta lead, if you have something to bait out their Sith Eternal Emperor on the front wall, such as a gas. Second, I would 100% use a Lord Vader team without Maul. I see a lot of people who don't have Maul with their Lord Vader team, and they save him for offense, which I find very odd. I would almost certainly put him on the back wall on defense, because by the time that they get to the back wall, in most cases, they're going to have expended all of their potential counters for Lord Vader without Maul, as he is still an extremely tricky team. Lastly, you can never go wrong with a GAC Omicron. Teams that I like are Traya with the trio, Talon and Savage. Darth Talon and Savage's Omicrons are both pretty decent, so if you have all three Omicrons on this team, in many circumstances, your opponent is going to get overwhelmed with the amount of information coming at them, and they're not going to have an appropriate counter to it. Second, Dash Scoundrels. I love Dash Scoundrels. If you have a really, really, really high relic Dash Scoundrels team with amazing offense, I'd try putting them on defense a few times, because I have found that when people attack your Dash Scoundrels team, they really don't know what to do with it, because most of the time it's going to be left for offense exclusively. So by putting it on defense, you're throwing your opponent a curveball, could catch them off guard, and typically people are not prepared for how much damage Dash does on defense, leading them to typically throw a squad at it, lose miserably, and then have to clean it up with a squad that is much more expensive than Dash Scoundrels, giving you an overall advantage. The back wall could also be not very important. You really want to look at your opponent and see if they can full clear your front wall before you do it. If you have some of these brick wall teams that I have here, like Jabba Embo, Lord Vader plus Reva, Starkiller Juhani, JMK Cat, Reva GI, Sith Empire, and Malgus, if you load your front wall up with any combination of 3 or 4 of these teams, you should probably analyze your opponent's roster and see if they can even defeat it. In a few circumstances, I've been matched up against a person who will put all of their Galactic Legends on defense, and my bottom wall has all three of my Galactic Legends on defense. I know at that point that there's nothing that they can do to clear that wall, and that all of the squads I've put in my back wall are completely useless. Now, in order to avoid this, you're going to have to be the person who has a higher roster size. So typically, a good strategy that I see is if you analyze your opponent's roster and they have Jedi Master Kenobi, Jedi Master Luke, and Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, you can put your Jabba and your JMK on defense and then leave the back wall empty, as there's likely not much that they're going to be able to do to clear those two teams. But it's always good to proceed with a little bit of caution. You never want to put some Gear 7, Gear 5 characters on your back wall. As many times I've faced opponents that will place a Jabba on their front wall, assuming that I have no counter to it, and then when I Sith Eternal Emperor and Imperial Troopers it, I'll clear that entire back zone and get a lot of free banners. So if you're going to set a weak back wall, you just want to really analyze what your opponent has and make certain that they cannot get through those teams you put on the front. Let's talk about ships. So in my situation, me personally, I set a tough defense. In the 26 matches, I've made it to fleets 5 times, and I've cleared fleets 3 of those times. I went 4 and 5 overall in those matches. Typically, I go for bottom, as bottom offers more banners, and I'm pretty good at off-meta counters. I've taken my negotiator up against a couple weak executors, done fine against it. I'm proficient in the malevolence versus executor counter, and then also all the way in Kyber 4, I have not seen a profundity on defense yet, which is absurd to me. I do have an Empire counter for profundity that I always save on offense. So how would I recommend that you handle your ships? First, I'd place your best ships on defense: Executor, Negotiator, Profundity, Leviathan. And then if you're good at your off-meta counters, you're going to have success in fleets, and if you're not, you're probably not going to do very well. So I'd use off-meta counters: Finalize for Executor, Empire for Executor or Profundity, or Leviathan, Malevolence for Executor, Radis for Profundity, and then backup Rebels. I keep my backup Rebels fleet on offense just in case they set a weak defensive fleet such as the Radis or the Finalizer. I can clean those up pretty easily with my backup Rebels. So it's always good to have one fleet on offense that is just there to clean up a weak squad without having to potentially use an off-meta counter. Lastly, is one side more important than another? Yes, bottom is certainly more important. As I've stated before, cocky opponents will set weak defenses in their bottom. So if you clear bottom zones and you're the underdog, in a lot of scenarios, you're going to be in a lot better position than your opponent, and you're going to have a great banner lead. Second, do you really want to put all of your trust in off-meta counters? The Executor counter for me has been a pain in the ass, as sometimes you absolutely just get walked over by your opponent. And this will cause you to lose the whole Grand Arena if the main strategy of your offense is to try and clear fleets. And the last question I got was Thrawn. I think that this is an interesting new model, as it appears that Elon Musk has purchased Star Wars and is implementing himself into the game one character at a time, as these two images are obviously the same man. Lastly, I think this should prepare us for the fact that the Cybertruck will be a Princess Leia Endor requirement, and given this information, we should be prepared to farm the Cybertruck coming up. All jokes aside, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm doing free roster reviews if you post your GG in the comments. I have the first one of those coming out tonight. And lastly, a little guild plug. My guild is currently the guild that gets the most Riva shards under any guild below 400 million GP. If you're interested in such a guild, the Discord link is in the description. Come join us. Thank you guys and have a great day.